Hello, welcome back to After Reality. It's your host, Courtney Robertson here, and I am so excited to connect with DeAnna Pappas Stagliano today. Hey, girl. Hey,
Hey,
what's cooking? Good looking.
I know. I should be cooking, shouldn't I? I don't know
You
what to
were
do with
last night. We were texting, and
my I
we
know.
both agreed that it's like our favorite thing, but you do it for a living, which is amazing.
Kinda, kinda, kinda. I can't even believe when I come home from work that I still wanna cook, but I did make last night chicken thighs and fried them in my air fryer with, like, veggies and fresh mozzarella, and I was like s I came down this morning and there's just, like, rice and stuff all over my countertops where I was just eating like a savage.
Do you have leftovers?
No, I went to sleep before I put anything away, and I was so mad at myself this morning because the chicken was so good, and I was wanting to have it for breakfast.
Oh, I love leftovers. Some people are anti leftovers.
It depends on what it is. I don't eat a lot of leftovers. I am kind of an anti-leftover person as well, and it's so funny, my kids are the same, and I guess it's because I just cook constantly. They're not huge on leftovers either, unless it's like pasta. They'll eat that all week.
Oh, me too. Put a little pepper on it, microwave it. I like salivate watching your videos, and I just wanted to have you on today to do a fun life update with you. I just also love chatting with you. And, you know, you don't watch The Bachelorette or The Bachelor anymore, do you?
I
Wait for
I know, I don't. I really don't. I There is something about the show that has truly changed for me. It's
Mhm.
I find it boring. And also, Courtney, I think I've told you this before. The older I get, the younger they get. So I find the episodes pretty painful to watch, like pretty painful.
Well, I was gonna ask you that because I was trying to watch last night because I'm gonna be interviewing some people and people love to hear my take on, the villains especially. But I was like finding myself like fast forwarding through commercials and then like the show would start and I would just let it go because I'm like, that's when you know you really aren't that interested or invested. But I feel like I'm like, have I aged out? Like, I used to really enjoy watching after my season because I could see things through a different lens, like, "Oh, they did that," or
Mhm.
"We missed this part," or "That was left on the editing room floor," but lately, I just maybe it's the age thing. Do you think that's what it is? Just aging out?
I don't know if it's the age thing. I think for me, and I don't think I've told you this, but when I filmed the Women Tell All last year with Charity, I was talking with some of the producers who have been on the show for a long time. Like you know them all, you know everybody. So
Bennett.
yes, everybody. We were chatting backstage, and I was saying to them because they were asking if I watch, right? And I was saying to them that they need to go back to the old way of the show. That's the problem for me. I
Yeah.
don't all the drama and the silly dates and the gimmicks and all of that
Mhm.
stuff. I liked the show back in the day when I was on it, when Trista was on it, when you were on it, when it had some actual reality to it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Where it felt more genuine, where even the contestants felt more genuine. And I don't know if it's just something that they have changed over time or if like social media added to that. You know what I mean? So I kind of fell off the wagon, especially when everybody was going on just to get followers so they could sell teeth whitener. Like I was like, I tapped, I'm out, I'm out. I can't watch the show anymore. But I miss the way the show was back in the day. And I wish that they would go back to that concept because I think that's why people genuinely liked the show and the Bachelor franchise because it felt more genuine and more real. And it doesn't have that feel anymore.
See, I don't know if it's my age, but you're right. I mean, the social media and you and I went through it at a time where that wasn't there. And I
Right.
remember, I mean, you probably got told a lot of things. People thought I was a paid actress. I was like, I am not here to be famous. I naively went in, oh, if I could just pull that 28-year-old girl aside and shake her a little bit, I would have done coulda, woulda, shoulda, right? But I think that's interesting, and a lot of people feel that way. The ratings are down. I don't know if you heard, but they
Oh,
have paused The Bachelorette this summer.
oh wow, that's shocking. I can't believe
Right.
that. I actually prefer to watch The Bachelorette over The Bachelor anyway. I don't like drama and I don't like all of that
Mm.
cattiness. Like I don't like it in my own normal life, let alone to watch it on television. So I prefer The Bachelorette instead, and so that makes me really sad. I was going to tell you something when I was saying that the show was more genuine. Before we started filming my season of The Bachelorette, I remember sitting in the lobby of the hotel that they had me waiting in. And I was talking with one of the executive producers who came over to see me in and, say hello and stuff.
Mm.
And he was saying to me, he was like, listen, this is going to be a lot of fun and your life is going to change, but like, don't let it go to your head. And I was looking at him and I was like, what is that supposed to mean? He was like, well, you're going to get like famous. And I was like, that's never going to go to my head. That's not why I'm doing it. And that's not what I want. But like at the end of the day, that will never go to my head. And still to this day, if someone comes up to me and says, oh my gosh, like I watched your season and blah, 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 I am deeply flattered. Like it just makes me like, I'm all like, let me give you a hug. What's your name? Let's be
Yeah.
friends. I am like deeply, deeply flattered that anyone recognizes me or that they sat down and watched the show. But I've always remembered that because I thought if I were to give any new bachelor or bachelorette advice, it would be that. Because I think now with the popularity of the show or lack thereof at this point, I think that happens to them. I think that they get on social media, they get on Dancing with the Stars, or they get another show, or they get on
Yeah.
Netflix or whatever it is that they're doing, that it changes them. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, we're all just people. Like I have a job. Like, oh my God, I remember this being at a club a long time ago, way before I had kids. I wasn't married or anything. And it was a contestant who had been on a season, like, I don't know, like 2 seasons after mine or something. And I was the bachelorette, right? Like I was the bachelorette. Very cool, very cool. And I distinctly remember, and I went back to work. Like I left the show and I went back to work. Like I took cool opportunities, like fun things to do, but I had a job. And I remember this girl, we were chatting and she was talking about how popular she was. And I think she made it pretty far on her season. Like she might have been like the final 2 or final 3. And she looked at me and said, well, like, what am I supposed to do now? It's not like I can have a real job. I'm famous. And I was like,
Have you heard of
no,
15 minutes of fame?
yeah, I was like, sister, get a job because in 3 months, no one's going to know who you are anymore. And I just remember being like blown away by that because I never had that mentality. You know what I mean? Like it was great. It was a wonderful experience. Shame it didn't work out. And then I did some really cool shit afterwards. Like I had
Yeah.
really great opportunities, but at the end of the day, fame was also never a priority to me. Like I genuinely went on the show to find love. Like that's why I ended up on Brad Womack's season. That's how I ended up as a bachelorette. I genuinely thought like, at the end of the day, this is the Lord's plan for me. This is what I'm supposed to do. This is how I will find my happy ending. Like I like deeply thought that.
And now how do you feel about it? Are you obviously, I mean, would you do it again? Obviously, that's a horrible question to ask, but I mean, I felt the same way. Just so you know, I felt that way. I saw Ben on Ashley's season. I had a crush on him, and I did it. I went through the whole thing. I got picked. I hate to say, and
Yeah.
then was also the villain, which was like deeply painful for me. And
Mhm.
I just was talking to somebody recently, and they said that they think it takes about 10 years to kind of get your life after being a contestant, like back on track. And maybe more so with the more recent contestants, but for
Mhm.
me, it really took a long time for me to find my footing, to kind of feel normal again because I didn't go into it for fame. And
Yeah.
kind of what you were touching on is I do believe, yeah, in the back of my mind, I was like, well, I'm going to be on national television, but I'm going to be with this guy. The cameras will stop rolling and then we'll just ride off into the sunset. Didn't really happen that way.
I know that you feel silly saying that out loud, but that is exactly how I felt, Courtney. Like and I remember like, and I don't know if you can relate to this, but I remember filming like the proposal, right? It was
Oh, yeah.
Jesse Sinsack. But, and I remember filming blah, blah, blah. Some choices in my life, I like gag a little, like I like have like a physical reaction.
It's like when you
Um,
wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, "That happened. Oh, Panic at the Disco."
yes.
Whoops.
So I remember filming the proposal, right?
Mhm.
And they get you all worked up for this whole proposal and everybody's there and everybody's so happy and yay, proposal's done. Then they get their fake shot to make sure that they have the right shot for camera, right? And then I remember standing there and feeling like this was the happiest moment of my life. And then everybody's like, all right, fuck, cut, we're done. The camera shut down and everyone disperses and everyone's gone. And I'm like,
Wait.
are we- what is happening? And I just remember that moment being like, oh, is this real? Like, what is happening in this moment? You know?
And then
And
you
I
probably
still
got to
remember
stay
that.
with him at, like, for, like they probably put you somewhere so you guys could enjoy, like, a little time together. DeAnna. Did
My
they
sister
did, right? I
Oh,
mean,
yeah,
did sh
yeah. We literally we go and take my jewelry, right? Because I don't get to keep it.
yeah.
And I remember, like, just being, like, kind of shocked, like, shell shocked. Um, and they do. They scoop you. Oh, they took my ring. And I was like, wait, don't I get to keep my diamonds? And they're like, yeah, no, not yet.
They're literally packing up equipment, like, it happens it's so funny because I had the same
Yes,
experience. We were in Switzerland, and they had a helicopter with a huge box flying over us when we were
yeah,
doing our shot of, like, "We're engaged," like, they had already packed up equipment, and it was, like,
yes.
flying over us as we were filming our kinda, like, fake shots, you know?
Yes. I can literally still picture it in my head. I can remember seeing, like, all I don't know what they're called, but the tall ones that have cameras up top and, like,
Mhm.
whatever the machine thing is that goes up and down. I can, like, close my eyes and still picture us in the Bahamas. It was beautiful out and everything, like, just collapsing, like, people just being like, "That's a wrap," and no one being like, "Goodbye, good luck." Like, everyone just left,
And
and instead
producers that you're so close with, they
Yes,
were like,
it is such a
"Congratulations," and they're like, "We're off to, a
Yeah,
wrap
yeah.
party."
We're going. You guys are gonna lock yourselves in a house. Yes, they whisked us off into some house, this beautiful mansion, obviously. And we got to stay together for 3 or 4 days, but I have a distinct memory when I got my phone back. That very first day when they locked us in the house, I hadn't even taken my Spanx off yet, and I called I
They
called
had
my
Spanx
sister.
back then? They didn't have them
Yeah.
I needed those
Yes.
on my season.
I remember calling my sister when he went to the restroom or something and he wasn't in the room because he never left my side. Like he was like weirdly like attached to me and I like felt claustrophobic. I am really independent. I have been on my own from a very young age and so I am not used to someone like clinging to me and needing me, right? And I finally had a few minutes alone and I had my old school BlackBerry and I called my sister and I was like, "Chrissy, I don't know what I've done." And she was like, "What?" And I was like, "Oh, I think I made a mistake."
No.
Yeah. And Chrissy was like, "Well,
Or, like, in the closet in the bathroom.
yes, yes, yes." And we spent like 3 days together and I just remember like him never leaving me alone, like being attached to me all the time. And he cried a lot. He cried a lot. And I was just like, I got home to Georgia and I was like, I just don't know. I just don't know. But I am an incredibly loyal being and I was committed to the relationship. I really was and trying to make it work. And at the end of the day, we are just two totally different people. Like it was, and I fucking hated Breckenridge, Colorado. It was cold and I hate the cold, Courtney. Like I hate cold weather. I don't
Me
like to
too.
snowboard. I don't
Same.
like to ski. I'm never going there for vacation. Like it's just not my thing. I hate being cold. And I remember after we were together for a few months, we went down, he and that snowboarding, that was like it was his thing. And
Mm.
we did one last run down the mountain and I fell and fractured my thumb and I kicked off my board and I was like, screw this. I'm done. I'm done. I want to go home. I want to go to Georgia where it's 80 degrees and humidity and I want to feel warm and I'm done. I'm out.
You tried. You tried.
I gave it a good go. I gave it a
Oh,
good
bless your heart. See, I'd be honest about that. I'm like, I would be having a hottie toddy. I'll wait for you in the lodge. And I think that when you're younger, I'm seeing this on this season. So there was an episode that just came on, and there's been a lot of bungee jumping. Um, kind of, what they do on The Bachelor, these
yeah,
grandioso dates, and I'm like, maybe it's my age, but I'm like, that to me doesn't look fun.
I
There was a girl in her bio who was like, "I, don't like hiking." And I was like, "I so appreciate the honesty because I think it then that transfers into real life. I think it's so easy to be with somebody who's like, "I love golf and you're going to golf with me." It's like, I
yeah.
have no interest in golfing. Like I know you love to hike. They
That's
have those things that say like, "I'd hike that." I wanna make a hat that's like, "I don't wanna hike that." But that is so interesting, and I can totally
so
relate.
we were also talking about the show needs to go back to the
The
original.
format,
Okay.
yes.
So I remember when once they announced that I was going to be the Bachelorette, it then was a whirlwind, right? Then they've got, casting, asking me what kind of guys I like. They've got this, and they're starting to plan. And I remember, and I don't know that they still do it because most of the producers that worked on my show aren't there anymore. So I don't really have connections with, people who are in the show anymore. But I remember my producer calling and saying, okay, if you could pick like any dates, what would you do? And they were like, just ramble out some ideas. And Courtney, my ideas were so basic. Like
A
I was
picnic.
like, baseball. I love baseball. I want to go to a baseball game. Love baseball. I like football. I like to golf. I like to lay on the beach. I like to catch a tan. Like all of my stuff was very basic. But what I appreciated about my season was that they did those things for me. Made
I
them back.
think that's more relatable,
I
though.
think
When
so
you're
too.
watching at home, it's like, you don't wanna be scared. It's also, like, with a world that with people with so much anxiety, like, I was watching them bungee jump in the rain, and I was like, "This
No.
isn't really enjoyable for me to watch." Like, this isn't, like, how I would bond with somebody. Like, I think that is relatable and people fans of the show, like you were saying, the format, and
Yeah.
bring it back to that, and I personally first of all, I wanna ask you, it just came to mind, if you remember how much you got paid to be the Bachelorette? And second of all, gosh, there's so many things that I wanna ask you. You just totally jogged my memory, but do you remember how much you got paid to do the show? I'm sure it was a lot of money at the time.
Have you never heard me tell this? How much
No.
I got paid?
No, and I know it's, like, embarrassing to ask about money, but I know how much my bachelor got paid and other contestants and stuff. No way, DeAnna.
This is why when people,
What?
yeah, this is why I can
If
say
you guys are listening to the audio only, she just held up a 0 sign.
I this is why when I can genuinely say I did the show for the right reasons. I also was
Mhm.
really dumb and naive, so there's a piece of that too where I was just I really did the show for the right reasons. But from a business sense, it was really dumb of me. They probably made millions of dollars off of me. I was just
Yes.
happy to do it. I was this naive girl from Noonan, Georgia, who I was selling real estate and bartending at the time, and I really thought like this was the Lord's plan for me. Like I think you get choices in life. We get the freedom to do that, but I in my gut felt like this was the plan for me. This was a moment, and I know you know this because I'm trying to write my own biography.
I know, we gotta touch on that too.
Yeah.
I need an update.
I have places in my life where I think were big changes for me that truly changed the trajectory of my life. And becoming the Bachelorette was one. And in my heart of hearts, I felt like that was it. Like this is my life. This is where I'm supposed to go. This is what I'm supposed to do. Now, I did not get paid, but what they did do is they covered like my bills, right? Because I was going to be gone for like 4 months, and I owned my own home. I bought my first house when I was like 23 years old.
That a
So
girl, that a girl. Now
no,
that is a quality bachelorette. Like, and you
yeah,
were touching on that and
I
going
mean, I'm
back
a
to
fucking
that.
boss. Like I'm a fucking boss. I have worked my ass
You have
off.
work
My entire
ethic.
life. Yes, for everything that I have, I've worked my entire life. So I asked them. They covered my mortgage, my car payment, um, whatever credit cards I had at the time, which
Smart.
wasn't. I've never been a credit card person. So I think what they gave me each month, Courtney, was $2,500
And that
because
covered everything?
yeah, my mortgage was only $1,000. I lived in Noonan,
Uh,
Georgia, and think about it. I bought my first house. I'm 43. That was 20 years ago. My first house was $135,000, and real estate. I was on an
yeah.
acre and a half of land, a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath ranch for $135,000.
Ugh. My
I know.
biggest regret is not buying real estate when I was younger, you know, I didn't know how to work
Well,
my
it didn't,
finances.
it didn't
Good
do
for
me any favors
you.
because when I sold it, it was right before Steven and I got married. The market crashed, and I lost my ass. I sold that house for like $80,000. Lost my tail.
I
So
wonder
it's
what it's worth now. We should look it up. But don't. It will make break
no,
your heart.
I know. So I think for the 4 months that I was committed to doing the show, that was $10,000. And all it did, I didn't make any money. All it did was cover my bills. That's it. Now I did a lot of things afterwards, a lot of fun things afterwards that I got paid to do. Back in the day, we used to do club appearances. You know what I mean? So
Oh,
I would
yeah.
go to club appearances and party with my girlfriends. I
So
would
fun.
I would do tours to Iraq and Afghanistan to visit the troops. So I would do red carpet things. So I got paid afterwards and realized kind of
How to
that I,
work it. How to
yeah, the
you
expos
learn how
made
to
me,
work it. I feel
yes,
like there's only 2 other I like to call us, like, the OGs. I know there's Trista and Bob in that era, but, like, I'm in that era too, which is I'm watching the show like, "Wow, I'm an oldie but a goodie." And but, like, Ali Fedotowsky and Trista just went on Special Forces, but, like, you know, Jilly Harris, like, I feel like you are somebody in that era before social media really kinda capitalized on that and had high likability before social media stuff. So it sounds like you were able to navigate that world, whereas some people just kind of fade off into the distance. Um,
yeah. Well, Harrison and I have always been friends, and he was really great to me when my season was done. He hooked me up with his PR agent.
oh, so
And
you had help.
yeah, yeah. And honestly, when I came off, I did Jimmy Kimmel. The things that I say, I'm like,
What?
I can't believe this is my life.
I
So
hope
when we
you have pictures of that because I have moments where I
don't,
look back and I'm like, I did some pretty cool stuff that I've never been braggadocious and there wasn't social media.
right,
I
right.
mean, might have
I'm
been a
sure if I
digital.
Googled, there's a picture of me and Jimmy Kimmel somewhere, like that someone took
That's
on set.
amazing.
Well, they do the whole press thing when you're done. And so I got to do Jimmy Kimmel, and it was during his summer series, and he used to put on concerts in the parking lot. And it was the most surreal thing because
I
he,
remember that. I lived in West Hollywood at the time. I almost went to one. There
so
was a line around the block to get in.
yes, I don't remember who was performing, but he sits on stage on like a couch, like on the side of the stage, because he goes back and forth to announce or whatever. And they sat me with him, like me. I'm just chilling on the couch with Jimmy Kimmel. And he leans over and he was like, "Do you have representation?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he was like, "You need an agent." And I was like, "Really?" And he was like, "Your life is about to change." He was like, "You need an agent and you need a manager and you need someone who's going to help guide you through this because your life is going to change." And I was like, "Wow, thanks for the advice." Do you know what he did?
What?
He seriously wrote down 3 names, 3 contacts and their phone numbers, and he was like, "Call them. I'm gonna give them a heads up that you're gonna call." I was like, why has everyone been so nice to me? Like, thank
Oh,
you. Like, you're Jimmy Kimmel. And he was the nicest person in the world. And I went several years later, my twin cousins came out for their college spring break. And at that point, I was old and didn't go out and party or anything, but I ended up getting tickets to Jimmy Kimmel and took the girls to Jimmy Kimmel. And here we are standing in the front row. And he sees me and he waves and he comes over and he's like, "What are you doing here? Why are you sitting up here? You should be sitting down here." And I was like, "Holy shit, Jimmy Kimmel. Like, are we friends? Are we boys?" Like,
yes.
yeah,
That is like a pinch me aha moment,
I
and you're
know.
so lucky that you had those contacts that helped you because you come off thrust off the show, and in your case, you were the lead, but as a contestant and you've been on both sides, you don't really have somebody helping you navigate the media. So the fact that you were in the right place at the right time, but here's the thing, you probably had to call those numbers, you probably had to make those connections and
Yeah.
and learn how even those meetings are nerve-wracking and learning how to navigate what feels comfortable to you, you should be commended. And I mean, my next question for you is, I personally think that I agree with you 100% about the franchise and the way it's gone. And I do love the franchise and what it's done for me. I've been able to parlay that into writing a book. I
Yeah.
can't wait to hear if I mean that story that you just told about Jimmy Kimmel, like I would love to read that on paper and like hear the ins and outs of like what that felt like and so much more about your life has been so fascinating. But I would personally love to see you as a bachelorette again. And I would. I just think
I
that
think I
like
would get
and
so
but going
nope,
back to
go
like
ahead.
you have your shit together, I think part of my French, but like going back to the fact that like you have worked your whole life, you bought a place and you work your butt off. You're basically a private chef. That's what I view it as. You're a working mom. You've been through a lot. You've lived your life, and I think that's what people love so much about the Golden Bachelor. Not to say that you're golden, but I think that you're in a
I'm
place
not
and you're
golden. I'm like, am I like bronze? I'm
yeah.
like bronze.
Right. But like the beauty of it is like you know what you want, you've lived your life, you work hard, like you bring a lot to the table. Whereas I feel like when I talk about aging out of the show and these younger people, like, and I can relate because I was 28 when I went on, but I had luckily had a career, but like you are the total package in my eyes, right?
You're so sweet to me. I love you so much. I love that, a side note, that how our friendship has blossomed over
Me
the years,
too.
because we've talked about this before. I remember when we first met, and I think you wrote about it in your book.
And I
At the
told you that I was so thankful that you were so kind to me because
Well, you
had
got the shit end of the stick. You know that. They
yeah,
they really
yeah.
treated you like hell, and I think that
I felt like the black
in
sheep though. I would get invited to cool stuff though, and I'd go and like Trista wouldn't talk to me or look at me, or Jillian Harris was so like she was the only person that
I
reached
hate
out
that
to
too,
me.
because Krista truly is the nicest person. She really is. So I hate that
Mm.
that was your experience.
Yes.
And I remember watching you on the show and just thinking, this poor girl, and I just
I
felt so,
needed support from, like, other bachelor people to help me navigate, and I felt like I had nobody, and so
yeah,
when I met you, I was like, "Oh my god, they're nice to me, they like me, like, this is an opportunity for them to see how I really am,"
yeah.
and
So much empathy for you, because you really did get the short end of the stick. Like, they really took every bit of that and just ran you through the mud.
they ran with it, but I'm at peace with it, and, like, I got invited back, like, you were talking about going to the women tell all or the after the
Yeah.
final rose, and, like, it's interesting to, like, go for full circle, like, you could, like, turn your back on it, which a lot of people do, but,
Mhm.
like, I was like, "I'm gonna embrace this," like, this was a choice I basically made lemonade out of lemons, so but this is about you, so would
Yeah.
you ever consider you've been divorced. When I had you on last, you said
Bronze bachelorette.
you said you would probably never get married again, but
I still feel pretty firm about that. I don't have a desire. Would I ever do The Bachelorette again? I think that I would, and I would for several reasons. A, my lifestyle is not conducive for dating.
yeah.
I'm either at work or I'm at home with my kids. And so I don't have a lot of free time to date. And one thing that I'm not going to do is like get a babysitter for my kids now that my time with my children is cut in half. You know what I
So
mean? Like, I get
precious, yeah.
right, half the month. Like, the last thing that I'm going to do is get a babysitter to go out and meet some guy. And I'll tell you what is awful too is dating. Like, just sitting at a bar and being like,
Mm.
"So, tell me, Jim, what do you like to do?"
What do you like to do for fun?
Yeah, I will say that doing the show was a very unique way to meet people, and I don't have a big radar for bullshit. So
Good for you,
I
because you
think I'm,
watch these other
yeah,
seasons and you're like, "Oh my gosh," or the whatever, and you're like, "Oh, girl," like, I'm watching Love Is Blind right now. I'm like,
I
"Red
love
flag. Get my red
that
flag out."
show. I love that show. I was also like this when I was the Bachelorette, even when I was 26 years old. And I pride myself in saying, like, I have grown and matured, obviously, but to my core, I am the same person. I'm not everyone's cup of tea. I have My ex-husband used to tell me I was difficult and challenging and really just some really nasty things. And that's okay, because at the end of the day, I'll never be any man's doormat. That's okay to me. I think there is beauty in being in a committed relationship and learning how to change and grow together. But there is a way to do that. But what you cannot do in life, in friendship, in relationship, is change or try to change someone who they are at their core. And who I
Mhm.
am at my core, I am a nice person. I am a
Yes.
nice, genuine woman, but I am strong and I am independent. And I don't have time for bullshit and fake things. Like, that's not who I am. I do not have surface level friendships. That's not who I am. I am not a surface level person. I am a deep person, and what I value are deep and genuine connections with whomever I'm with my friends, with my family, with anyone who is in my life, and especially in a relationship. I don't have time for bullshit. So the nice thing about divorce is there is a bit of a cleansing, right?
I wanted to ask you about that as well as, like, kind of an update on how you're feeling, because I haven't had you on for, God, at least 6 months or
I
something.
know. I think the last time I was in Idaho when we chatted.
Yeah.
I'm doing really, really well. I will still say that navigating divorce and co-parenting is really challenging. Uh, and it's still pretty fresh for us, right? I mean, for anyone who thinks they know me, they think I've just been divorced, but Steve and I truly haven't been together for several years.
Mhm.
We had separated for a while before we ever even announced we were getting divorced. And then even leading up to that, it was the most difficult time of my life. So like, although it sounds fresh to anyone else, truly we haven't been connected as partners in well over 3 or 4 years. You know, our marriage was difficult at times, and it was really beautiful at other times too. But I think that I clung to something that was dying. And I don't now looking back, I don't know that that was because I loved him. I think that I have a deep sense of abandonment, and the more he pulled away, the more I clung to him in my marriage. And then there's also this piece, and anyone who is listening who has been divorced, I don't know if everyone feels the same, but I felt so much like shame in it. Like to say it out loud that I was getting divorced, I felt so much shame and embarrassment. And then to be paired with that, there was a deep sense of disconnect within the family and in his family. So I truly felt like for about a year, I walked around with a scarlet letter on my chest. Like it was the hardest
Yeah.
time of my entire life. I was a shell of myself. And I remember people who I thought were my friends just like like ghosting me, like wouldn't even look in my direction, treated me like I was a fucking Black Widow or something. You know, it was truly the worst time of my life. And I think when we recorded before,
And that's
I
really
told
sad to have to navigate when you're dealing with
yes,
like a traumatic life event. Like, when
yes,
you need your support system, and not to take away from that, but, like, when my season aired, I lost best friends, I lost
yes,
people that just ghosted
yes.
me, and they called me the Black Widow on my season, so I can deeply relate to the pain of not having that and not knowing what people are thinking about
Yeah.
you, and just trying to keep your head above water.
Or just the whispers too. You know what I mean? Because
Yes.
I
People love to gossip. Oh,
oh yeah, and I was a great wife. I really protected my marriage, and in the depths of things that really went wrong, or Steven's struggles or my struggles, I really protected that. So to hear people that I don't even know say, "Oh, did someone cheat?" Like I first off, it's no one's business at the end of the
yeah.
day. It's no one's business. So to hear people that aren't even a part of my life gossiping behind my back, that was also really hurtful. So, you know, in a nutshell, like divorce is like death. There is a grieving process. And I truly took the time to grieve my marriage and the loss of Stephen's family, because there is a,
You were
divorce.
together for a long time.
Yeah, 15 years I think we were together, married over 12. So there is, and his family I like loved, and I still do. Like his mom and I still have a relationship. His little sister and I are still really close, and her husband.
Mhm.
But there is a huge grieving process when you divorce. I grieved the loss of his family. I grieved him. I grieved the loss of my marriage. I grieved the loss of the idea of growing old together for my kids and showing them what a healthy marriage is. But looking back, like now, like I wasn't showing my kids what a healthy marriage is. I remember asking Austin one time, was he okay? And he was like, yeah. And I asked Addison, and she was like, yeah, I'm just so thankful I don't have to hear you and daddy fight anymore. And like that, Courtney, is just like a gut punch. You know what I mean? Because we really thought that we were protecting the kids, and we thought they didn't hear us, and we'd fight after they go to bed. And at the end of the day, they always know. So
They hear everything.
they hear,
I'm learning this.
they do. They hear everything. Wait till your
Oh.
children start playing with their baby doll and they start punishing their baby doll the way that you punish them. That's
Paloma doing that. My
that's all.
daughter is giving me a run for my money. Well, I
Yeah, and she
appreciate you
will.
sharing because, part of me starting this was to help people.
Yeah.
And, like I said, I've always been a fan of you for, not that you liked me, but you were kind to me in a moment of where I was really struggling. And I
Mhm.
think that this is like a full circle moment. And like I said, I will always be in your corner. I can't imagine, I have 3 kids with my husband, and it's hard.
Yeah.
Like my daughter had walking pneumonia last week. I was sick over the holidays, and like dealing with stress, and also
Mhm.
different parenting styles, which
Mhm.
we've been really, my husband and I feel like there's like in a relationship or a marriage, like there's times where you're just like like driving down the road on like the same lanes, and you're like in step. And then there's other times where you're like
Yes, someone's ahead,
going,
someone's behind. Yes,
yes,
sometimes it's 80-20, sometimes it's 40-30. You know what I mean? Like
yes.
it's hardly ever when you guys can walk 50-50 and carry the weight. Like, but that's the beauty in relationships, right? Sometimes we have to carry our partner and they have to
Yes.
carry us. And the hard part is having to learn to do that
And
and learn
also,
to do it
like,
healthy.
keep your boundaries and, like, like you were saying, like, I'm not gonna be a doormat, and that is why I think you would be I mean, hell, you could go on Special Forces. I can't wait to see what happens next for you. How's the like you said, you have very limited time to date. Is there anything exciting going on? Is there anybody t that you wanna write home about, or you just tell me? I
um,
mean, how do I
I
tee this up?
I would welcome anyone who would like to set me up on a date with a really great guy. I would welcome that. But, we were kind of chatting before about how your life changes, right? Like when I was 26 in The Bachelorette and to be a bachelorette now, it's very different. Like I can remember being on the show and being like, even just to make out with a guy, I'm like, ooh, my dad's watching. Well, let's be honest. We all know I'm not a virgin. Okay. I've got two pieces to prove that. So I think to be a bachelorette now, it would be a very different scenario. You know what I mean?
I
I
think it'd be
also
great.
have found yeah, thanks. I have found so much growth in like what I need and what I desire and how to recognize red flags. And uh I think the beauty in the place that I'm in right now is like I have a great career that I love. I love my job. I love my home. I told you I came home. We were texting last night and I came home
Yeah.
and my kids are with Steven. They come back to me today. But I came home from work and I sat in my own home that I pay for and sat on my couch and watched whatever I wanted and cooked my own dinner and didn't have to do the dishes because I didn't want to. And I thought the same thing when I was getting ready this morning to chat with you. I was upstairs in my bedroom and I was listening to music really loud and I was like, I
This
love being here alone. Like I love my life. And to come I'm writing and if my book never does anything, I don't care. I have always wanted to write my own autobiography and it has been very therapeutic to write
You
it.
have to do it.
So
I will help you any which
there
way till Tuesday.
thank you. Thank you. There are points in it where it's been really beautiful to write because, and I write about this, but there have been, I think, three major points in my life that have changed the trajectory of where I think I'm supposed to go. And the first one was when my mom died. She died when I was 12. I've been very open about that. She had cancer. The second was becoming the bachelorette. And the third point that has changed my life was divorce. Right. And those are three huge moments in my life that really made me take a hard look at who I am and also where I can go and where I can learn and grow from that. So, although divorce was really hard, I am in such a beautiful state now as a woman that like I would like anything, like if anyone wanted to set me up on a date, if I could do a show, if I could do a podcast, I don't care what that looks like. Like I'm flattered, but I feel more powerful now as a woman. So I wonder would producers even make me a bachelorette because I can't really be manipulated now.
Which
I
makes it
feel
so interesting.
I know I feel really good about being like, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. I was good about it when I was younger. Like I don't do heights. So like you would never catch me bungee jumping. Like I
Mm.
was a hard pass for me. But like
Oh,
even now, like I like if someone was like, oh, we need you to kiss this guy for the sake of television, because that happened to me when I filmed and I really didn't want to do it. I would now be like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm simply not going to do that. Or like if it were, say I was on a date with a guy that I just met and 5 minutes in, I didn't like him, I would be like, hey, it's been so nice to meet you. This is not going to work for me. I don't want to waste your time. Please don't waste mine. I wish you all the best. I, and I have dated a little bit, but not a lot, but I pride myself on like, if I'm not interested in someone, I will tell them. I don't believe in
yeah,
ghosting.
cut it off at the head.
Oh yeah. I don't believe in
Don't
ghosting
waste
people.
time. No.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
I think it's so disrespectful. Like if you
Oh,
are
yeah.
seeing someone or if you've been seeing them for several dates or sleeping together, whatever that looks like, to just not speak to someone and just like not say anything is so disrespectful.
So
And
immature.
oh my God. And I will tell you what, there have been a couple of people where I have just been like, hey, this is not working out for me. I think you're really great. I appreciate the time we spent together. I wish you well. Like, what's wrong with just saying that? Like, be a fucking adult.
Mhm.
So anyway, I say all of that. I'm just saying, if I
So
were to have,
I'm hearing yes.
yes, yes, if I
You
had the
would entertain
opportunity,
it.
I think that I would do any dating show at this point because I don't have time to date. And I'll tell you what is not fun is Bumble. Like that's just a shit
Mm.
show. I
Girl,
did that for almost, I don't know, 7 months or something, and I finally deleted it.
it's such
But
a time suck,
no,
and there's
it's
so
just
many, like,
gross
creepers
too, like,
out there. I mean, every time I
oh,
did it when I
yeah,
lived
like,
in
you're just
LA, it's the same guys, and I'm like,
I know,
"How are
and
you
you're
still
just
on
swiping.
here?" Yeah.
It's a very superficial concept, like, and I'm telling you, I did it myself, like, oh, I wouldn't even read their bio, and I was like, unattractive, unattractive. Okay,
Yep.
he's cute. You know what I mean? And I only I met a couple of really great guys, but again, it just was never. It didn't work out for me. And here's the thing: at the end of the day, for anyone to date me, like, what are they going to see me once every couple of weeks? I think that once I meet someone who I genuinely care about,
That you
and I
can't wait, like, you wanna spend, like, your
right,
all the time with, and
right, or
but
that
to
I see
bring
it
them into
going
your, like, safe space and your
exactly.
orbit where you're, like, so solid,
And
Deanna.
I'm not in a place either where I wanna introduce anyone to my children, like,
Yeah.
so I think if I were to meet someone who I thought was really great, whether it be on a television show or a podcast or whatever that looks like, you know what I mean? Or if you hooked me up with someone that it would have to be someone really great that has the qualities that I am looking for at this stage in my life to even think about bringing them around my children, you know? And even I have a hard time like introducing anyone to my friends because especially
Mhm.
here in LA, my friends in LA have only ever known me with Steven. So there's this weird piece of me that's like, ooh, I don't want to tell them that I'm dating this guy because they've only known me as a married woman to Steven. And so it just feels it's not weird to them. It's just weird to me.
Mm, yeah.
So anyway, yeah, I would do it. I would do it. I would do it. I think the beauty of doing something like The Bachelorette is like you get to experience people in a way that you probably never would. I wouldn't
Yeah.
do
ABC casting.
I wouldn't do the
Well,
show as it is right now. I would not do the show as it
no.
is right now. But if Rob Mills would take that show back to what it used to be when I was the Bachelorette, 100% I would do it again because I think it's a really unique way to meet someone. And and again, I'm not the nice thing is I'm not looking to be famous. I would like to come back and still do my job as a flight attendant and cook and do all of that. Like that's what I love. I genuinely love my job. I love what I do. I love who I work for. And I wouldn't change that for anything in the world. So yeah,
Rob
I'd do
Mills, I
it.
hope you're out there listening, and also there's so many endless opportunities now. There's other shows, and you can definitely swing something. I mean, like Traders, I heard only films for like 2 weeks, Special Forces, and I mean,
I don't think I could do special forces. I
I
really
couldn't
don't.
either. I don't think I
I
could.
don't want to jump off things. I don't want to like be told that I have to run really
It's
far.
like you talking about being cold, like, I hate
Yeah,
being
I don't want to do
freezing,
that.
like, I don't wanna be like, even this week's episode of Grand Season, they were in, Madrid, Spain, and they were freezing. You could tell these girls are just, like, so cold the whole time, and I'm like, "That looks awful." Like, no.
I'm a sweaty person. Like if it's like hot out, I'm a sweater. Like I sweat on my upper lip. Like I'm a sweater. Um,
Yes.
I would much rather be laying on a beach in Cabo and look like a sweaty hot rat with a guy on a date than in the snow any day.
You know how your back gets cold too or, like, hurts when you're cold? Oh, you just get
Yes.
so tense. Oh, it's the
And when
worst,
you're
so
my age, once you cross over like 40, like everything starts to hurt anyway. So I don't want to induce like things that hurt. I side note,
girl, my knees have
listen,
been hurting. I'm like, we could talk about our
I
aches and pains all day.
my knees hurt when I get out of the bed in the morning. My
I've
feet hurt.
never had knee pain before.
You're gonna die. Well, because I've been working so much, I and traveling the world, eating is one of my favorite things when I
Mm.
go to a new city. I love to experience food and culture and all of that. So I've gained like 14 pounds in the last, I don't know, year and a half. And I'm honestly, I'm
Same.
totally okay with it. I like really love me. I love my body. I'm very grateful that I've never had body image issues. So me at any size, I've really, really loved and I'm trying to teach Addison that too, that every body, literal body, is different and differently made, but it's made whole and fully loved through the Lord, right? And I am very grateful that I've never had body image issues. I have felt really beautiful at every size, should you say? So, but I think I look back at the last year and a half, and I've lived my life eating food all over the world, and it is my favorite thing to do. And so, I was working out the other day, Courtney, which I don't do a lot anymore. I go into this gym and I'm like, I'm gonna get back to fighting weight right now, like right now. So I think I was in Mexico. I don't know where I was. So I'm in the gym and I'm working out, and there's this hot guy behind me and he's working out really hard. So I'm like, I'm going to get after it. Right. I
Oh, I
do.
love a good little I see women in their socks and their shoes, and I'm like, "Wow, she's really killing on the
Oh yeah.
stair." I'm like, I'm gonna, like,
I'm going to do it.
go side to side."
I'm gonna
Okay.
do it. So I'm in there and I'm doing back and tries and buys and whatever else. And then
Buys and
decide
buys.
I'm doing them all. I'm going to do abs, right? Which I haven't done in a very long time. They're there somewhere, I think,
Same.
underneath. But
Mhm.
I lay down and I do like hundreds of like crunches and
Good
obliques and
for
all.
you.
Oh yeah, I told you I got after it, fighting weight in one day. So then I stand up and I grab, I don't even know what the weight is called, but it's like a little ball and it's got like a handle on top.
Yeah, like a
So I got
dumbbell
that,
or
and
something,
I'm
yeah.
standing up and I'm doing like standing crunches where like you lift your leg, and then I decide, oh, I'm gonna do more obliques. And I've got this thing and I'm standing there in front of the mirror and I'm staring at this hot guy and I'm like, I'm doing the side to sides, right? And
Oh.
the weight. Do you know I could not walk the other day, not the next day, not because I was sore. I sprained my damn rib. That's how old I am. I came home from that trip and had to go to the doctor, Courtney, and she pressed my rib and I screamed bloody murder. And she was like, you sprained your rib. How did you do that? And I was like,
It was a kettlebell.
I was
Yeah.
just freaking out. I was trying to lose 20 pounds in 1 hour and I worked out so hard. And she was like, stop doing that. And I was like, it is still sore right now. Like for like 2 weeks, I could hardly walk. Like my pilots were having to carry my things up the airplane. They were having to like carry me. I was in St. Martin and I had an ace bandage wrapped around my ribs. I had all this stuff and I could barely move. I gagged myself one morning brushing my teeth and I almost fell into the floor in pain. And I was like, this is it. I'm never working out again. You like it or leave it. This is me. Never doing it again.
I can so relate. I literally was folding something the other day and I threw my back out. My husband was there. I was like, "Ow!" And he's like, "What happened?" And I was like, I'm like, "How did this happen? I just literally tweaked my back." But good for you for getting after it. We got to get you either back in those Spanx or like a what is it called? A back brace for when you work out.
Literally,
A rib brace.
my best friend Caitlin Wilson literally Googled when I was at her house, laid out on the couch, mind you, because I couldn't move. Like they
And
had
by the way,
helped me.
your tries and everything else probably really hurt on top of it.
Listen, listen. Caitlin sent me a link on Amazon for and it's literally an old person wearing this, and it is a wrap for your ribs, like a back brace that you're
You need
supposed
to
to wear daily. And I was like, okay, am I
just
there?
Amazon Prime it right now.
Yes, I'm so sexy. I'm so okay. The Bachelorette. Okay, she's so sexy. She's old and decrepit and wears a back brace.
Girl, you still got it. Your confidence is the sexiest thing. I mean, I cannot wait to see what happens next for you. And I was going to do a fun rapid fire with you, but I kind of want to save it because I've got some spicy questions and that kind of stuff. So, well, what else? Let's see. Where else can everybody follow along with you? DeAnna, thank you so much for hopping on with me. Um, what's
I
cooking
love
good
you.
looking?
I feel
I know, I
like
love you too. Sorry, my segues are horrible today. I'm
regular.
still,
Nope, I'm just a regular on your podcast. I'm here all the
yep.
time. You
I
just
would
text
love
me and
for
I'm
you to
here.
like take over if like there's a week where I'm sick or I'm out. I would love to have you just like
Oh
host it
yeah,
for me. If
let me know.
I just like connecting with real people and down to earth and authentic. And we don't, I mean, we have the Bachelor in common, but we're both moms
Yeah,
and strong,
yeah.
independent women. And you're writing your book. So we didn't touch on that. So well, we did, but you're writing it. How far along are you in the process? Do you have like a good outline?
I have a great outline. Actually, I've been tweaking it. My childhood best friend, Michelle, is an editor. So she's been helping me a bit. And so when I was finally done, I was going to send you my outline because I did it a little
Send it.
differently. You were so gracious to send me yours so that I could look at
Yes.
it. And it was a huge help because then I kind of could see, because I really don't know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like,
Nor did
I've
I.
always I know. I've always wanted to write a book. It has been something that I've wanted to do forever about my own life. And so I finally started doing it when I went back and started reading the pages of my journal. And I journaled pretty regularly when Stephen and I were going through a divorce and there was some trauma and division within the family. And some pages I still can't read to this day. I
Oh,
have to pass them by because they're still just, it's just too painful,
oh, I
So
know.
when I was reading through my journal, I was like, I think it's now or never. Like, I think it's now or never. And if an agent doesn't pick me up and it doesn't sell, I did it for me. At the end of the day, I've done it for me. So I've done my outline, and I'll tell you, I did it a little different than yours. So I was trying to go off of yours and think, oh, how can I do this with sample chapters and stuff like that? But I wasn't
Just an
ready to do it.
outline. Yeah.
Yep. But I wasn't ready to do that because I have some sample chapters, but my mind is kind of all over the place. So I have a sample chapter of how I felt when Stephen asked for a divorce. And then I have a sample chapter of like when I was a little girl. So I'm kind of all over the place and it needs some organization. So what I decided to do is I did the basic stuff, like all how I promote it and all that stuff. But what I did was I broke my book down into 3 sections. Beginning, where I was when I was younger, bachelorette, which I'm happy to tell all of those things. I don't know that anyone's going to hear anything new out of the thousands of podcasts that I've done, but to talk about the bachelorette and I want to try and be as vulnerable as I possibly can because everyone always has questions like what goes on in the fantasy suite, like what does that? So I think for me, I'm in a spot in my life as an adult where I don't mind sharing some of those things and my experience and what I did. Whereas like when I was 26, I was almost really modest in a way, like, ooh, I'll never kiss and tell, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
there are a lot of details that I can share. So the second part is the bachelorette. And then the third part is divorce, right? I said this earlier. There were 3 points in my life that have changed the trajectory of my life. And so that's where I'm breaking it down. So my sample chapter actually was a moment when I was in therapy. I think I shared that with you before.
Yeah.
When we were going through divorce, I did a lot of therapy. I had a therapist that I saw weekly, but I hit a moment when Stephen finally asked for a divorce where I was having panic attacks all the time. I was having anxiety every day. And that's not something that I've ever struggled with in my life. So I actually didn't know what it was at first until I had my first panic attack. And I thought I was dying. I was in my car on my way to work and I had to pull over on the side of the road. And I was actually
You did tell me that.
I was actually on the phone with Stephen and he was like, just take breaths. You're having a panic attack. And it was a point where I almost like passed out in the car. So there was a moment when Stephen finally asked for a divorce, and it's not my proudest moment by any means, but I pride myself in the one thing that I can always talk about is my honesty. And I'm very genuine. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why people gravitate towards me and why people like me, because I am a very open and honest human being. And I think there's beauty in dark moments too, good moments and dark moments. And it was like December 11th, and I'll never forget it. It was the darkest moment of my life. Stephen asked for a divorce, and I drank 2 bottles of wine in the middle of the day and took my anxiety medicine on an empty stomach. And my kids came home from school. I was functioning. I made dinner, but before I could serve them dinner, I was like, I'm tired. And I just like went to sleep on the couch. And Stephen was there. They were not alone. You know what I mean? But that's the moment I woke up the next day and I was like, I'm not okay. Like, I am not okay. I was a shell of myself. I didn't know who I was in that moment. And I've never had a point in my life where I felt so empty and I didn't know who I was. So I found a trauma center in LA. I think I told you this. And I signed right up. It was a lot of money, but it was the best money I've ever spent in my entire life. And I went 3 days a week for intensive trauma therapy, right? Because what I was going through was trauma. I have different moments of my life that have been traumatic, but what I was experiencing in that moment was trauma. And so I went for 3 hours a day, and I remember walking into that place. I ended up being there for like 6 weeks. Best decision I've ever made in my entire life. I walked into that place, a broken person and very wounded, and left that place. I remember driving home some days and smiling and being like, oh, there she is. She's coming back. Like, she's coming back. And I remember sitting in there, and I would share with my therapist, and we had group therapy, and then I had my own personal therapist. And I remember her looking at me one day when I finally was coming back to life, and she was saying, I think you're okay. Like, I don't think that, Stephen used to tell me I was a broken little girl. And I remember seeing a text one time where someone said, she's just a broken little girl. Oh, I could still cry about it now.
That wanna makes me cry. That's
a really mean thing to say to anyone, right?
Yeah.
I'll never forget this. It's ingrained in my head. And this person said, she's just a broken little girl whose daddy never loved her. So, of course, she doesn't know how to love anyone else. And I'll never forget that
That's
because
what really
I have,
mean.
that's really mean, right? Really, really mean.
Yeah.
I have never viewed myself as a broken little girl. And my dad did love me, maybe not in ways that I wanted to be loved, but my dad loved me and he still loves me. And he goes out of his way to help me. And I'll never forget that. And I remember sitting in front of my therapist and saying that to her. And she was like, "You're not a broken little girl. Like, you've never been a broken little girl." And she was like, "And as a matter of fact, I don't think you carry trauma from things that have happened in your past." She said, "I think what you're experiencing right now, this is your trauma. Like, this is the
Mhm.
worst trauma you've ever been through." And I was like, "You know what? You're right." So, my sample chapter that I'm turning in is, and I won't share too many details because I think it's written really beautifully.
Ugh.
Um, but there was a time when I was in the trauma center. I didn't feel worthy of being there because, and I think I've said this to you before, I was just going through a divorce. That's it. I was just going through a divorce. Poor me, poor woman, you know? And I felt like my problems were not big enough to take up space in group therapy because some people were there for bigger things. You know what I mean? Like serious things. And so I never felt truly worthy of spending time talking in group therapy because I was just a sad person who was going through a divorce. And there was a moment in, excuse me, there was a moment in one of my group sessions. Friday sessions were like a catch up, like, how are you doing? How was your week? What do you need? Kind of thing. And I never shared. And there was, 7, 8, 9 people in there, I think. And we all kind of sat around in a circle. It's kind of like what you would think. And I never ever shared. Like, I was just always like, it's fine. I'm going through a divorce. I'm really sad. But I didn't share details. Right. And the therapist was like, let's do a check-in, and a couple of people shared, and then she turned and looked at me, and that day I happened to be sitting really close to her, like right in her eyesight.
Mm.
And she said, "DeAnna, how are you?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm fine, fine." She was like, "Do you want to share?" And I was like, "Nah, nah." And somebody went to speak, and she said, "Stop." And the room was just silent for several minutes, and I sobbed. It just all came pouring out. Like, and I don't mean words, like I cried uncontrollably like a baby, like fell into the floor crying. And some people went to console me and speak to me. And the therapist said, just stop, let her for a minute. And that was it for me. That was the moment I had a breakthrough because
Mm.
I then just started like speaking. It was just like word vomit. And I just shared everything. I shared everything that had been happening to me and the pain that I was in and how I didn't feel worthy of being there because I was just going through a divorce. And I remember leaving there thinking like, I'm going to be okay. So anyway, that's my sample chapter that I wrote. And that's just the Cliff's Notes, but
I have goosebumps from head to toe.
thanks. It
Well,
was,
thank you for sharing that, and it would like I said, going back to helping people, seriously, and you have a voice, and I just wish I could have hugged you or given you space if you needed it in that moment, and you're giving a lot of people hope, and, I have been in those situations. You and I have talked offline very candidly about, you know when you touched on that you drank 2 bottles of wine. I deal with anxiety. Like, if I drink too much, I know I'm gonna probably have anxiety the next day.
yeah.
Um, my mom passed away, from alcoholism, and it's something that has been a forefront in my mind. I started going to Al-Anon meetings and,
Well, good job.
just to share with you, when I lived in LA, I would go to one in the Pacific Palisades, and I felt so much anxiety going there because it's kinda like what you were saying, like, you go and you see this group of people there, and this was after The Bachelor. I'm like, "Is someone gonna take a picture of me?"
Yeah.
But it is anonymous, right? Or so you hope.
Yeah.
But I was also dating somebody who was an addict. They say if you have just a statistic, if you have an alcoholic parent, you're 50% more likely to end up with an alcoholic. And
Mm.
I have attracted a certain type of person. And I think that could just be LA as well.
Yeah.
But just wanted to share with you because I went to a handful of Al-Anon meetings and AA meetings with my ex who was an addict. And I think it's really nerve-wracking to walk in and like share. And I was the same way as you. I didn't share. I didn't share. I just sat there. I felt supported. And I remember the day that I was like, I'm going to get brave and I'm going to share. And it just came pouring out of me. And it was such a turning point.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how I feel. Yeah.
I'm proud of
It's
you
just
for
to share
sharing that.
Thanks. Thanks. I think there's, and I just said this to you, I think there's beauty in sharing good stuff, but there's also beauty in sharing dark stuff, because people who might have been just like you or just like me, who feel like they can't talk about those hard moments, I think when they hear you or me share about those hard moments in your podcast, you know what I mean?
You're uncomfortable. It's not all just
I
rainbows
get
and butterflies every
I
day.
don't get DMs from hot guys wanting to take me out on dates. I get DMs from women who are thankful that I shared my heart and relate to me. And then, I've had so many people reach out to me and share about their divorce and how hard it was because they've heard me on your podcast talking about it. And
Oh, I've had so many kind messages
yeah.
about you, and
Oh, thank you.
so I'm so
For me,
thankful to have you here.
I appreciate it, right? Like I want, and I'm happy that people see me that way. I want to be a kind and relatable person. Like that's who I think I am. And so when I do get those messages and I try to respond literally to every single one when I have time, I just am really grateful for it. And it's a moment where I can be a space for someone else, because I do feel like I'm through it. I'm not through all of it. There are some pieces that I'm
Yeah.
still in, but
Ugh,
I am through the thick of it,
isn't that
and
like such as life? I mean, so am I.
such is life. I am through the thick of it, and I feel really good to be very happy again. And I feel good to be in a space where I even want to date again. I didn't want to date for a really long time. I did not want to date. It was just not on the forefront of my mind. I was really worried about my kids
Yeah.
and the
Well, and I
transition.
can't imagine navigating co-parenting with somebody who is dating, like, you
It's
know,
not fun.
I mean, like, another woman around my kids, like, makes me wanna just go like, the thought of it makes me, like, go a little bit nuclear, you know?
I don't understand, because for me, I don't rush from relationship to relationship. I never have. I really take a moment to grieve.
I'm so glad that you did that for yourself because now you've cleared the space, you've set the
I,
table,
I feel free to like.
and now you get to invite who comes to dinner with you.
Right, right,
Yes,
right.
it's like
Like, I feel okay saying like, "Oh, this was hard to deal with Steven," but, like, there is no space in my heart that is still holding. I'm not holding any space for that relationship any longer, for that marriage. I truly grieved it, but I've done that my whole life. I have grieved every relationship. I've walked through it. I've taken a moment to be alone and sit with myself, who I really like. I really like myself, and I really enjoy
yeah,
my
your night last night sounded amazing.
treated myself to dinner, paid with it with my own money. Like, I had a great time. So I feel really good to finally be in a space where I think that I could take on a relationship, that I could actually fully open up my heart and be with someone, because vulnerability does not come easy to me, in oddly, because I can be completely vulnerable on your podcast all day, but it's not easy for me to be vulnerable in a relationship, like a partnership, that I'm very protective of. So I feel good to be in a space to do that. But I know we got to wrap this up, but you were saying,
I don't wanna rush you, I don't know if you're good on
okay.
time.
No, I was just going to say, I do have to work today
Oh,
before I pick up the kids. You said, I can't imagine a woman around my children. And I'll tell you, it's one of the hardest moments that I've had to go through was, um, I didn't rush to date and am not, but Steven started dating right away. And that was hard for me, not because I still wanted to be with him and still loved him. I just didn't understand it. I'm like, 15 years we were together. How can you
right,
be with someone else? I just didn't understand it. Neither here nor there. I don't care.
right. Oh,
Um,
good for you. I love how you
I
can,
really
like,
don't. Listen,
compartmentalize things, you're just like, like,
yeah, I
we
don't.
could all
Yeah,
take a page out of your book.
yeah, yeah. So there was a moment when he wanted to introduce her to the kids, and that was really hard for me.
Ugh,
Just to have another woman
like,
around your children.
my heart sinks thinking about it.
Yeah, it's not so bad now. She seems
Ugh,
very nice. I don't know her well. She seems very nice, and the kids like her. That's all I can ask for, right? The kids say that she's their friend. She does things with them, and that's all I can ask for, is a nice person around my children, because I had a really horrible stepmom experience, like really, really bad. Like she was verbally and physically abusive. So for me, it was just really important for a kind person to be around my children. And she seems to be that. So there was a moment where it was actually this year at the beginning of the school year, and Stephen had the kids. And Addison wanted her hair curled for the first day of school, but the kids weren't with me for the first day of school. And so
Oh, Dion, I could cry thinking about it.
I know. So there's certain moments that are really
Did she do the hair?
so Addison really wanted her hair curled for the first day of school. And she doesn't have a curling iron at her daddy's house. And so we were doing the when you go to school, you get to go in for the first day and meet your teacher or whatever. So we were doing that. And she came. The girlfriend came, which is also hard. Like, just let me have my moments with my children. Like, you don't have to parent and come, but she came. And Addison in front of her said, I really want my hair curled for the first day of school. And I said, oh, okay, maybe Shannon can, oops, sorry, I shouldn't say her name. You can bleep
No,
that out.
I'll bleep it out.
Um, okay, maybe she can curl your hair. And Addison said, well, we don't have a curling iron. Could we borrow yours? I'm not going to tell my baby no, you know? So I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And so they're like, oh my gosh, we'll follow you to your place and we'll get your curling iron. So here I am giving my curling iron to another woman to curl my child's hair on the first day of school. But I did it for my children. And I'll tell you, when I handed off that curling iron and they left, I cried myself to sleep that night, because that was a moment that was really hard for me, you know, to have another woman taking care of my child, you know. And so I met them for the first day of school, and Addison walked up and I said, oh my gosh, your hair looks great. And she said, yeah. And I said, what's wrong? She goes, well, mommy, you do it better.
Oh,
And so then I was like, okay.
you're pulling all my heartstrings.
I know. I was like, okay, all right. She still loves me. She still thinks that I do certain things better. Like, you know, I work really hard to tell the kids that, like, they get one mommy and they get one daddy. Like, if daddy has a girlfriend, they can be, you know, they can love her and they can be friends with her, but they get one mommy and they get one daddy, and no one ever gets to replace that. So there have been moments like that, Courtney, where it's been really difficult for me because, and I remember speaking to my mother-in-law after that, and Lynn is really wonderful, and her saying, hey, you know, you're doing a great job. And I said, well, you know what, Lynn, no one prepares for having another woman in children's lives. And I think that I've done a really great job, you know. And I think the benefit here is that I'm a product of divorce, and I saw my dad and my mom fight constantly, and my dad in particular was really mean to my mom. So, you know, I say this to Stephen all the time. I'm like, you're lucky. You're lucky, because
Oh yeah.
exactly what I'm not going to do to my children. I'm not going to put them through that trauma where they get to see us treat each other terribly. Like, they get to love you fully and they get to love me fully. And they don't need to know the depths of shit that went on in our marriage or within the family or anything like that. They get to just
You
love.
have been a class act,
Thank you.
DeAnna. I mean, seriously, your side of the street is clean, but, you know, there have been hard moments, and, you know, I'm so thankful that I'm in the trenches. I have a 4, 3, and
Yeah.
9-month-old, and then you think, like, there's been some really hard days. I'm like, "Oh my god, what if I didn't have his help?" Or what if he decided to leave me? Like, you have those crazy thoughts, and we're great. We're doing great. We're, like I said, driving down the road on
Yeah.
the same lane right now, but it's not easy
No,
raising a family together, and you did it for 15 years, but I have had those thoughts of, like, I know myself, like, I'm a strong woman too, I won't let anybody walk all over me, but I have that, like, little thing in me that it would be really hard for me to
it
share
would
my
be
kids
hard.
with. Yeah,
It would be hard. But
but then you learn the new tools, right, to.
for anyone else who is listening, and again, I have people who will message me and say they're going through a divorce and it's so hard or whatever. I promise it gets better. I promise. You know, I never wanted divorce. That is not why I went into marriage. I didn't look at it like, oh, well, if it doesn't work out, I'll get divorced. I never had those thoughts cross my mind, right? I was getting married for life. But you find yourself again. You find yourself again, or
And that's
whatever.
such a beautiful thing. Like, you
Yes.
finding your, like, love. I mean, you love cooking, like, those are, like, I'll be having a hard time, and, like, I find myself cooking or doing trying a new recipe, or, like, I did a lemonade stand for the kids. I'm like, this is my love language. Like things that like fill your cup. And you're like, why
When I
don't I
was going
do
through a
this
divorce, I
more
didn't like
often?
cooking. Yes, I didn't love cooking. I didn't cook for like months because I didn't find joy in it anymore. So there are there is whatever new version you become after divorce. I promise it gets better. It's okay. Like I now just am in a place where I just like deeply worry about the kids, but I'll probably do that for the rest of my life.
I
But
feel like that way as soon as I had my first baby.
yes, yeah, yeah. Therapy is a beautiful thing. We've all done therapy. Like kids are in therapy. It's a really beautiful thing that maybe it's not for everybody, but I'm an advocate for mental health and I always have been. And we all need somebody. Well, my best friend is Caitlin Wilson and we all
Mm.
need Caitlin Wilson. Like there were days that I couldn't carry myself and that girl carried me proudly, proudly. And
I would love
everybody
to
needs.
hear you guys on a podcast together. So shout out to good friends like that who
Yeah.
will sit with you in the trenches and swing with you for the fences. I think I just
Yep.
quoted Taylor Swift.
What did she say? She takes the trash to the curb. What's that saying?
Yes. Oh gosh, we could like I just want to
Kate,
have a day. You and I
Kate
need a
used to text
day.
me that almost daily when I would be really sad. She'd be like, "The trash takes itself out. Don't worry, the trash
My
takes itself."
husband always says when I get a troll or something, he's like, "Don't play in the mud with pigs. You'll always get
I love
dirty,
that.
Courtney."
I
And
love
he's
that.
like, and they're gonna like it. I'm like, ugh,
There
darn
was
it.
a long time, right, that Kate used to say to me because I would call her or text her daily and be crying and say, "This person did this," or at school pickup they all turned their back, or whatever. You know what I mean? And she would say, "You keep being you, right? You said to me, I kept my side of the street clean.
Yeah,
I've always done that. That's who I am."
it will serve you well.
Yes. And Kate used to say to me almost daily, she said, "People will see. Red flags are they're out there and people will see. Just give it time. People will see."
But you could
And
always throw a punch. I mean, so I never come not correct. So you're bold and you're strong when you need to be, right?
yes, absolutely. I will not be a doormat. I will not be anyone's doormat, but I will still be strong and still be kind. That's who I am.
Mhm. Deanna, thank you so much for joining me today. Like I said, I would love to have you take over sometime or just have you back anytime. And I
Anytime.
cannot wait
We're
to
always like, "Oh,
see.
it's going to be quick," and then here we are, an hour and 12 minutes later. Like
I
we're
had
just
these
like
rapid
just
fire
talk.
because like Valentine's Day was last week, and I was like, that's something new. I'm kind of trying out, but we'll do it another time because I know
Let's
you've
do it
got a lot
next week.
going on.
I'm
Next
home
week.
all next week. Do it next week.
Okay. All right, Deanna.
Thank
Well,
you.
where can everybody follow along with you? I know Instagram. You
The
could see
the
your
only thing
yummy
I have is
meals.
Instagram. I don't have time. Should I list my phone number here for all my suitors?
Slide into the DMs or my DMs, and then I can vet them for you
DM
because,
me or DM Courtney? We're taking applications.
yep, I cannot wait to see what happens.
Yeah,
You,
I only have Instagram. I don't have time for anything else, and I don't even post anything other anymore other than me cooking. Like that's all I do. I love it, and that's all I do. But that's all I have. I just have Instagram. I do not do TikTok. I have a Twitter, but please don't message me there. I don't use it.
I don't know. It's X now. I don't ever look
Oh
at
yeah,
it.
whatever it is. I don't even know. I don't use it. So I only use Instagram. It's at DeAnna Stag, and that's where you can find me. Probably making something fresh.
Whipping up something yummy. All right, you guys, thank you for tuning in. Thank you so much, Deanna. We will have you back soon. Until next time, I'm your host, Courtney Robertson, and this has been After Reality. Second, and recording.